We were promised a world where software development would cater to human creativity, where teams could pivot, explore, and build things which actually matter without suffocating under the unbearable weight of documentation and regulation. And instead, we got Scrum. More specifically, we got a highly commercialized, rigid system of ticket pushing, which basically turns the whole world of software engineering into a kind of an assembly line. And if you look closely at what this corporate paradigm, this corporate framework did to the quality assurance discipline, the damage is pretty catastrophic, to be honest. Because Scrum didn't optimize quality. It actually optimized the quality out of the quality. It killed the most valuable, critical, and creative part of testing, which is exploratory testing. Because think about how your average sprint looks. It's not a place to be creative. It's not a space for exploration. Quite the contrary, it's a manic 2-week cycle that is driven by one metric only, and that is velocity. We've traded the deep intellectual curiosity that is the driving force behind the whole quality assurance discipline. We traded that for just the speed of pushing JIRA tickets back and forth. And in that very rush to move the cards on the board from left to right and right back to left, we kind of lost the capacity to look at software like human beings, and instead we became the assembly line robots. The fundamental flaw of modern Scrum methodologies and implementations is that everything needs to be quantified, everything needs to be neatly packed into stories, estimated and predictable. And herein lies the problem, because true exploratory testing is inherently unpredictable. Exploratory testing is an open-ended investigation. It's a detective that is working on a hunch, that is walking into the metaphorical room and looking at an anomaly and pulling on that thread creatively until 2 hours later a massive architectural flow kind of unravels from all of it. And that is what true exploration is. You cannot estimate that. You cannot put story points on a hunch. But try explaining to a non-technical Scrum Master that you spent the whole day yesterday trying to creatively break the application, or that you just tried to tinker with the new feature in order to maybe find something underneath. That you were looking around the system in order to try unexpected things. The system panics if it doesn't have a subtask, if it can't be mapped on a burn down chart. The corporate machinery assumes you did zero work. So what do engineers do in this environment? They adapt. They adapt to the metrics. They stop exploring. Instead of breaking the software creatively, they just look at a ticker, look at the acceptance criteria, they write a quick script or run the regression on that, they validate the exact 3 bullet points that are listed there, and they just move on. They move to the next story. We have successfully replaced deep critical investigation with shallow regression validation just to keep the project managers happy. Because great testing requires 2 things that modern corporate processes absolutely despise, and that is time and unstructured chaos. Because to find the bugs that actually matter, the race conditions, the subtle UX anomalies that alienate some of the user base, the problems which are hidden underneath and kind of bypass the security checks, to find all of that, your brain needs room to breathe. You need the freedom to sit with the feature, to understand its context, to ask weird, unexpected questions. But the 2-week sprint creates a constant feeling of artificial urgency all the time. There's always another deployment coming, always another refinement, always another retrospective coming. There's always something which makes you rush indefinitely. We are so busy talking about how we work that we fail to find the time to do the actually most important part of the work. The sprint cycle forces QAs into this reactive loop of developers pushing code on day 9 of the sprint so that the QAs are left with like 36 hours to validate everything before the code freeze. And then no wonder that in that pressure cooker of an environment, they fail to find the time to do the creative thinking of exploration. You are just panicking, running your regression suites, clicking through the happy paths and praying that nothing breaks in production. We have created a culture in which a tester that is blindly automating simple test scripts is seen as efficient, while one that critically analyzes some subtle anomaly in the system is seen as the bottleneck for the release train. And the shift doesn't just hurt the product, it actually destroys the engineering morale. It breeds a generation of ticket closers who are no longer interested in the big picture. When your value as an engineer is reduced to the number of story points that you have burned through during this sprint, then no wonder you stop thinking about the big picture and stop investing energy into things which cannot be quantified and, as a consequence, actually attributed as an added value. And so you reach a point of kind of quiet compliance, because the next time you see a weird behavior in the background logs, you start to realize that investigating it means opening a new ticket, explaining it to the product owner who maybe doesn't understand technical debt, and ruining the team's velocity metrics for the week. So you close your eyes, you let it slide, and you focus on the stories that are assigned to you and that have a neat, quantified story point value. And this is how bad software happens at great companies. Not because the engineers working there are incompetent, but because the system that they are thrown into penalizes deep engineering thought and rewards superficial progress. So how do we fix this? How do we survive or maybe even thrive in this feature factory environment as engineers? First, we need to, at the kind of conceptual level, stop treating Scrum like a religion, because it is a management framework, not an engineering guide. And second, as senior quality professionals, we need to start fighting for the unallocated time. During sprint planning, when the team is stuffing the sprint with new features, you need to stand up and actually speak up about the need for exploration. Build risk analysis directly into the definition of done. If a feature hasn't been manually and creatively and critically validated by an actual human mind, it shouldn't be deemed as ready for production, regardless of how many green squares it collected in the regression run. Automation isn't an oracle. Automation is there to clear the path and to remove the repetitive boredom in order to free up the energy of the QAs to actually do the critical and creative investigation and exploration. It's there to free up your energy to engage in the actual hunt. So don't let the velocity metrics turn you into a robot. Your value is your perspective, your curiosity, and your critical eye. So remember to keep your instincts sharp and to always keep on rocking.